Take a mental health break with the Mood Disorders Association of Manitoba and U Radio.
Thanks for having us here today. My name is James Dixon. I'm a program coordinator with Artbeat Studio. We are a not-for-profit registered charity in the heart of downtown Winnipeg who use art as a way for folks to navigate mental health challenges. We're in our 21st year of running, and we're really thankful for the programs and the folks that engage with us. I'm a program coordinator, so a lot of my work is doing things like this, chatting with folks about mental health and art, and also bringing the work that we do to other folks, whether that's through workshops, whether that's through presentations, and it makes for a really exciting job some days.
Thank you again for the invitation. It's sorry for the delay in getting back, but we're really happy to be back with speaking with your audience. I'm Rita Chahal. I'm the Executive Director of Mood Disorders Association of Manitoba, affectionately known as MDAM. We're located here at 4th Street, right here in this building where you are. And we've been around for 40 plus years, started as a grassroots organization, providing support for those who might be experiencing some going through difficulties in their mental health journeys. Ours is a peer support model that we provide peer support versus clinical support, but we work very closely with those who do provide clinical support in helping individuals who might be needing that clinical intervention as part of their recovery process. It's an important part of our service delivery model, which is to work with other organizations. And one we were very delighted to work with was the Artbeat Studio this year for our major fundraiser since 2019, and because we really believe that there's a real connection between art and mental health and well-being. So that was a great partnership, and thank you, James, and everyone else at Artbeat for working with us this year.
Okay, why don't we just dive directly into that relationship between art and mental health. Through a lot of our conversations, Rita, we've talked about that mental health continuum, finding. So James, when we're looking at art and mental health, for some people, they might not see the correlation between those two. So why don't you explain to us, what is it that art can do to help with mental health?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think art, the more that we've explored creativity and artistic practice, we've seen definitely a correlation between folks who have mental health challenges and utilizing art and creativity as a way to help with personal management. Like from a ground level perspective of art, art is centering. And we talk a lot with folks who have anxiety, or we have folks who have schizoid affective disorder, or we have folks who have lived depression. And art, the act of making art, that physicality, whether it's a pen on paper, whether it's a brush with paint, whether it's whatever your practice, whatever medium you choose to engage with, that practice can be very centering for folks and can kind of take a lot of that noise that a lot of folks experience in their head. So someone who is struggling with anxiety might have a lot of thoughts, a lot of like that sort of a bit of that wheel turning faster and faster. And art is something that folks can sit down with and find this sort of quiet moment where they can let those thoughts sort of wash away and they can just focus on the canvas in front of them. So when folks are done their work, that impact is positive, and that impact has helped to alleviate some of those ongoing symptoms that people have to deal with. Art doesn't take away or cure our mental health challenges, but it does work to help. It works with you to create a space that centers you.
It's like a strategy of a coping strategy. That's how I look at it. And the idea of for us this year to have the Minds in Bloom event it grew out of very organically. It really kind of started with my own personal reflections on the importance of art and well-being. A part of it, from some university courses that I had done. My background is in a degree in science with a minor in music. So, that's always been part of my thinking, that art has plays such an important part, whether it's performing arts or visual arts or any form that people can be creative. So that's kind of where it grew out of. And when we were looking at this fundraiser, we all sat around, thought about, how we could do. And it's about, we thought about spring, and we thought about flowers, and about engaging and gardening, the concept of minds in bloom just literally blossomed, and that's why we took that route that we did. And it really became such an engaging way for people to really think about what you've said, that art is a coping strategy. It's not a cure for sure, but it does help. It certainly helped folks that I've known. It's something that we also, in very small ways, apply here at Mood Disorders, because we run what we call a MAD camp for youth, 12 to 17 is called, which stands for Music, Art, Dance, Drama. And so kids between the ages of 12 and 17 who are experiencing some challenges in their wellness journeys, turn to art, whether some of them create little Picasso, rock bands, or Picassos, or do choreograph a dance item, or they do a skit, or they, write a play. Those are some of the things that the kids that go through our MAD camp have done. And it's incredible. It's incredible the difference that these activities make for them. They make lifelong friends, they stay together, and they want to continue doing it all year round. So it's really worked well for us. And James, from you helped us with the art competition. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that, and then
Yeah. I think that our partnership felt very organic. I think we both work with folks in a peer support structure, and we realized that the combining the work that you do with the work that we do through art made sense for us to collaborate for this fundraiser. The Minds in Bloom really brought out a lot of creativity in folks, and we had folks from across Manitoba. We had one entry was from Roblin, I think.
That's right. Yeah. Quite a few. It was all over. Yeah.
And the challenge was to create a bouquet of flowers, but not using flowers, using textile mediums, anything other, to create your own vision of what a bouquet is, using alternative mediums. And we had some really incredible work that people brought to the table to be a part of this competition. But also, one of the things that tied in very well with the fundraiser is the artists who created the bouquets for the Minds in Bloom. You could see their personal narrative in the story behind the bouquet, whether it was struggling with addictions, whether it was struggling with negative self-talk, whether it was, all of the bouquets represented something really personal from the artist who submitted, and that's what made those bouquets so special. It wasn't
Absolutely.
just...
I couldn't agree with you more, James. When I purposely chose not to look at any of the entries and the finalists that the team selected in terms of who that would be entered in for the event. And when I read the stories and when I saw the pictures, I spent a better part of a Sunday afternoon crying over those.
It was emotional.
It was so emotional, and when you looked at those the visuals that I saw, I didn't actually see the actual creative designs until the day off. But you could read and you could see people's faces, and when you were reading the information, why they had done, it was so much their personal journey. And they were just one after the other outstanding, literally outstanding, and a number of people bid on them and took them home. I have one sitting in my office, and I look at it every day, and I just say, this one makes me so happy. I just love looking at this one.
Yeah.
So it was just such an incredible, and we do have a booklet booklets that are available. If somebody wants to get a booklet, we'd be more than happy to provide them for you. It has the story of the individuals that created them. But in addition to that, we did also, as you know, remember, have 4 florists who created these Minds in Bloom creation with real flowers. And those were incredible as well, and they also told a story. So it was this combination of real flowers blooming, and as well as this creative pieces that people made. Just the materials that they used, do you remember one, James, that we had one? This was one that was particularly touching to my heart, and somebody bid on it and have it somewhere in their home now. It was somebody who had taken pieces of the journal that they had written over the years, and cut up into pieces, and they had pill boxes, the one you get from the pharmacist, those orange colored ones or dark brown ones, and they had made this tree with all, and it was just so impactful. It was one that I just will never forget. Plus the one that's in my room, in my office, that I just love.
Just to piggyback off you, Rita, real quick, when you're talking about, approaching this art through different mediums, they've tied it into some of the struggles or challenges that they've had to tell those stories. When you're talking about centering oneself in art, is that part of that therapy, talking with them about, tying their experiences to it, or is it just about the process in itself?
I think those two ideas work in partnership with each other. The physicality, the process of making art in itself can be very centering for folks, but the act of making art provides a space for folks to tell their story and to take those struggles, that pain, that joy, and to translate that into a work of art. So it creates something very personal to them. Cool aesthetics, whatever their medium may be, art we love to look at, but especially with mental health, when you start to understand who the artist is behind the work, it makes the work that much more impactful. And you can really see how the act of creating art builds confidence in folks. We work with a lot of folks who are, I would say, are in a transitional place. They're folks who are maybe getting their footing back, sort of stepping back out into the world, and art has been a great way for our participants to find self-confidence and to find a way to express themselves. Because before, sometimes folks might keep it all bottled up inside and they don't know who to speak to. And, a big part of the mood disorders and ARTBEAT is to normalize our conversations around mental health. And so they may be in a place where they're not able to talk about their mental health struggles, but we provide a space for folks to just speak to it.
Some of the feedback that we got from the artists was that nobody had ever asked them to do this in a way that it was recognized and people got to see and hear their stories. They heard their stories through the visuals that they had created, the art pieces. And so a number of the artists that we spoke with and chose to share their story personally with us, they were very emotional about it, and that no one had ever given them. So I think, well, there are definitely art therapy strategies, and again, from a clinical perspective, when that's not where we want to go with it. But for us, it was more about that support, as a coping strategy, as part of the peer support that we provide, which to us made complete sense when working with you and the folks that you work with, and the way in which we deliver our services. It was a great partnership. That's not discounting art therapy as a clinical tool that is used by clinicians as part of a healing process.
Yeah.
Through this conversation, I'm kind of getting this idea of art therapy and utilizing art in that kind of peer support model at MDAM. It's another tool in the toolbox people can utilize in their mental health continuum journey then.
Yep, absolutely. We're in the same, we run as a peer support, peer-led organization, and using art for folks gives a strong sense of independence and from a community approach as well. So it's about their personal practice, but through mood disorders and ARTBEAT, they're building a community of folks that they can engage with who understand where they're at and meet each other. Yeah.
And it's non-judgmental. There's no judgment on it or any kind of other intervention. It's the individual taking their own journey into their own hand and being able to explain it in a way that you and I couldn't, that maybe a therapist might not, the therapist might listen and not to take away from the work that a therapist would and support that they would provide. But the ownership, I think, is what the model that we try to implement in our service delivery is the ownership that the individual helps themselves and they can help others.
And that's why both of our organizations it was wonderful when we partnered, but like separately, you start to see the need within our community and why these organizations are very vital to folks who have mental health struggles. Because yes, there is a clinical approach which is very healthy for folks to engage with, but then once you're out of the hospital, where do you go? Like, what do I do to continue this, like building my own personal supports? How do I continue healing? And so now folks can come to mood disorders, they can come to Artbeat and find that community. Yeah.
Overall, we've actually found, again, this is moving a little bit away from the art piece, but we have found a model that we've sort of, again, organically grown within the organization is activity-based peer support. Peer support, there's some very specific things about peer support that need to be, you need to ensure when you are taking the responsibility of delivering a peer support model for service and helping others. But what we found was that people didn't want to just talk about doom and gloom, about, what some of the challenges that they were. What we heard from folks was that they really also wanted to talk about excited things, things that make them happy, things that bring them joy, activities that will help them to sort of normalize the conversation, as we put it earlier. And so our activity-based activities, include a book club, for example. We have a wonderful book club. We run it 3 times a year, where people get to discuss a book that's a lot of it, is on self-help, but there are very specific. The group chooses the books that they want to review. We have tea and tales for seniors, and they get together once a week. And now we started with 2 people in a group here in Winnipeg. We now have 5 centers across the province that are doing tea and tales for seniors. Again, seniors who, want to lead the conversations. They want to talk about what some of the challenges are. And we're getting more and more requests for that. And art is an important part of that, those conversations. For example, the session that we run here in Winnipeg, there's a young lady, 15 years old. She wants to volunteer with those seniors. She comes in every week and helps them create art. Like, to me, that is an incredible community building. We have a games night every Friday night, and the group is growing. People come in and play board games. I mean, throughout that process, they're also talking about some of the challenges. They pick out what they want, and they, either buddy up with someone or a group says. But they also talk about, what they might have experienced. Maybe it's how that somebody might have gone through the same thing and helped. Again, very much a peer-led model, but they're also doing something very else engaging. And now we last year wanted to put the games night on hiatus for the summer, because summer we were usually short-staffed. But what an outcry. People said, no, absolutely not. This is the one thing that I look forward to every Friday night. Please do not put. So we had volunteers who got trained, and so we do not put our games night on hiatus at all during the summer or at Christmas time, because that's the one place that people can feel they can go together and be part of that community and be engaged. We've got great board games that just love it.
And I think it's also important to note that, like with the Mood Disorders Association and for Artbeat, we create space for folks to come to. if we weren't physically existing in the spaces we are, then where would folks go to? So having like our organizations present in downtown allows folks to like create a routine for themselves, to go and participate in the multiple different programs that we offer. Because outside of that, who would facilitate that for them?
And
So-
for the there's also waiting lists for so many of
Yeah,
these
yeah.
activities that people want to be engaged in, whether it's art lessons or dance lessons. There's waiting lists, and sometimes the cost is quite prohibitive. Not people can't necessarily. So this is again a space where we can, through the generosity of our funders, are able to provide that safe. We call it a safe space.
There's also, we were just discussing before, this sort of post-pandemic culture we're in right now. And I think one of the positive impacts of going through that pandemic was people understanding and realizing how important mental health supports are. For us, we had such an uptick in folks wanting to engage with our programming because they needed something that was an outlet. And we just got a lot of new partners and lots of new friends as we are sort of rebuilding ourselves.
And the same thing happened with us during COVID, because we were first only an in-person service delivery here at Mood Disorders. When COVID hit, nothing was available, obviously on site, but we stayed connected as best we could through our virtual platforms. And then actually we were one of the few organizations that were able to continue doing that across the province. However, when things started to get back to normal, what we found was that the conversation around mental health had become much more normalized, and people were willing to look at ways in which they want to stay engaged and talk about this, but they'd like the option of either virtual or in person. So we've been able to adapt that hybrid model. So some things, not all of the things are, especially if it's activity based, it's harder to have it virtually, but many of the other group sessions that we run are both hybrid, available in person as well as virtual, and it's anyone can join from any part of the province.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It's wonderful.
To come back around to the Minds in Bloom event that happened, how did it go in general? How did you feel? What was attendance like? And kind of what was the hope and goal of this event?
It was just one of the best things that I've ever been part of. We were not sure how we were going to get back into the fundraising space after an absence of almost 6 years. But we took a chance, and we said, whether we, as long as we can kind of break even, or, that was kind of what our financial intent was. But besides wanting it to be a fundraiser, we also wanted to be part of that conversation and have community engagement, so that people can continue on this path of normalizing the conversation around mental health. It was just one of the best things I've had the privilege of being part of. We, James, you were on our panel. Now, that was an incredible panel that we put
really
together. The leaders in our mental health sector, and of course in the arts sector with Artbeat, talked about the infrastructure and some of the gaps that exist, but also the opportunities that exist within our province around policy, around innovation, around where how funding is allocated, where those resources need to be. So we had Marion Cooper from the Canadian Mental Health Association. We had Deb Reddy from Clinic, from Pam Swanson from Huddle, who is the voice of the youth, and of course James, speaking from the artistic community. So it was such an incredible conversation. Many people responded by saying that was the best part of the great lunch and all the networking and all those wonderful prizes that we had. However, that conversation really opened up a lot, and so people have said you need to make it a little bit longer. That was what some of the feedback that we got. And we had one young woman who shared her story, who had been with us from her when we first started introduced the MAD camp. You remember Avery,
yeah.
and she gave her testimonial and what MAD camp had done for her and what they organized. That was another piece that people said, by having someone there who could share their story about what this meant and the way art had impacted her. And so she spoke extremely well about it. But she's also done a whole bunch of other things. Avery has. She has started programs in her school around mental health. She incorporates art into some of that. She's as a keynote speaker at conferences. She just finished her first year at university, wanting to get into the mental health sector. So that's such a tremendous way in which we can see someone's journey and how it progresses. So I'm a strong believer in art and mental health going together hand in hand. The event itself was wonderful. We had close to 200 people, great sponsors. We had a very large donation from a construction company. Maple Leaf Construction was one of our largest donors. And we had some incredible silent auction items, as well as some other gifts that people could bid on. So overall, and of course, having it at the Hotel Fort Garry, one of our heritage hotels, I believe, in our city, it was a setting that was so lovely as
beautiful.
Well. It was just a beautiful setting. So overall, Ryan, it was one of the best things that I've ever been privileged to be a part of, and we're going to do it again next year.
Fantastic. I want to jump on that a little bit when you're mentioning that panel and the conversations that were taking place about those gaps within the system. The conversation here, people are listening about the value of peer support, about having those physical spaces that people can go to. It being part of this sector and working with people, what are some of those things that you're noticing that are gaps within the mental health sphere here in the province?
In terms of gaps, I would say we have a lot of folks. We have an art center that we run out of Portage Place. It's drop-in. It's for adults. We have a lot of our community that sort of are come and go and participate there, and we hear a lot of that first-hand experience of the struggles they have every day. And it's actually not even about mental health. It's about how they access programs that are available, whether it's trying to get a bus ticket, whether it's trying to connect with someone for proper medications. A lot of folks find that they get pushed to all these different points around the city. The gap is physical for some, having to go from downtown all the way to St. Patel to get one thing, and then to come back to downtown to access services for something else. What we've been finding is some organizations have now sort of stepped up a bit, and we're seeing a lot more wraparound supports. So instead of folks having to go to all these different locations to get one thing from each space, there are some organizations where they can go to the table and those supports are all there ready for them. So they can get a bus ticket, but at the same space, they can also get new eyeglasses. So building wraparound supports for folks, I think, is really vital. And I think that people are seeing how that is important for folks who have those struggles, whether it's mental health, whether it's economic. Yeah, I think some of those
Can
barriers.
you touch on that term a little bit, wraparound supports? That's something that I've been hearing a lot lately with the Your Way Home plan. But in a lot of these kind of stories, articles, it doesn't really talk about what that means. So to you and kind of your experiences, what is a wraparound support?
I think a wraparound support for folks who we work with, it's just a space where folks can access multiple things that they need for their daily life. Instead of having to go to multiple buildings to do multiple different things, they can actually access through a support worker a few things that they need for their life to sort of carry on.
Things that you and I would sometimes take for granted.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily accessible to everybody. So I think the wraparound model is one of those areas that community decision makers, corporates can look at innovative ways to provide that level of continuity and accessibility to those most in need. I mean, in a wraparound service, you might not need everything that an organization provides, but you might need 3 or 4, whether it's getting that bus ticket and knowing and maybe where some of the resources are for medical intervention, to learning how to those life skills, or finding affordable housing, and how do you go through the process of putting an application together for something which not necessarily everybody knows. There's all levels of literacy, that various levels of financial security, food security. All of those elements are part of the wraparound. How to write a resume, that can be, but not everyone can provide all of those wraparound service. But that's where I think the innovation can happen.
Yes.
Mood disorders and some of our sister organizations are really working together to do to referrals, especially the 3 organizations that are in this building. Somebody walks in through our doors, they may think they need something from an organization, or they may not know who they should go to. So when we screen that at the front desk, we can then refer them. Okay, it might be more helpful for you to go to Peer Connections. It might be better to be addressed at mood disorders, and so we refer people. So that is one type of wraparound that we could say existed within this building, but that's because 3 organizations who are very independent, financially, governance, operational, but they are able to provide that safe space where somebody walks in the door, they don't have to be going through a maze. And that's part of the conversation that we had, is that the necessary for people to make it easier for accessibility,
easing those barriers for folks.
Barrier free. I think
barrier free. Yeah.
And so the conversation was, we really wish we had an hour to have that conversation, but, we were limited for time. But that was perhaps a great start, I think.
And that's why the panel was so effective, I think, at the fundraiser, because we had sort of four folks from 4 different organizations, but all with the same with the
same type of client, and also
Yes.
with the same intentions. I think
same
at the end of
intention,
the day,
that's it,
we all work towards serving our clients, serving our community. So Canadian Mental Health represented the provincial and the national scope, and their understanding and their voice on that. A clinic was, as I said in my, I was the moderator, so I referred to clinic as a geographical go-to organization and centrally located in Manitoba, where we all look at clinic as a hub for referring people. And then Huddle is the voice of the youth, again, as part of the government and United Way support system that exists for most people didn't know that, why is even Huddle here? And that it is the voice of youth. And then, of course, the Art Beat kind of helped wrap it all together. And this is what we are doing. This is because we wanted to marry art and mental health together. So it was a great conversation. It was one that I've done a lot of moderating panels. It was one of the nicest panels that I've had the chance to moderate. So it was indeed a pleasure to have these leaders at that table.
As we're looking ahead, you've had this fundraiser, you've had this partnership and collaboration to talk about the industry, to talk about some of those barriers, as well as the role of art in someone's mental health continuum. Are there current conversations between your 2 organizations about continued partnership?
From our perspective, we absolutely will be continuing. I hope that it's reciprocal from Artbeat as well. But to date, the conversation has continued. Maybe look at different areas that we want to explore. And I will be, very open and frank about this. That funding is always a challenge. Whenever you come up with a new idea and you want to pilot something, you have to have the resources. So we're always looking for funding partners. The two organizations can very easily provide the content and the scope of a program, but we'll always be looking at those ways in which how we can financially ensure viability of and delivery of a program.
Absolutely. And I think we'd had this conversation earlier as well, how this partnership for the Minds in Bloom fundraiser made so much sense, and it was such a good fit. And we were genuinely surprised that how is this the first time that we've really worked together? And it made the future feel brighter in terms of the programming that we're delivering and that you're delivering, and how there's such a cohesive connection between the two of them. So it makes, like, whatever we do in the future together, we want to do that together. Yeah. 200
people showed up. We were thinking, originally when we did the budgeting and planning for it, I thought if we make 75 to 100 people, I'll be happy. But we had 200 people, and many of the people that we connected with, especially corporations, and we did it in such a short time. It was such a, we didn't get this thing started till late March. I think it was really literally six weeks, 6 to 8 weeks turnaround time. And folks, the feedback that we got was, tell us about this next year. We will definitely be wanting to support you. Give us enough time. Call us in the fall, so we'll have things in our budget for that. So the great response from the community, we're really grateful for that.
And as we're just looking throughout the summer between your two organizations, what are some programs or initiatives that you are offering to people who might be looking for that peer support?
For mood disorders, we are again providing our MAD camp, which starts on July the 7th. But and given the circumstances of the province with the fires this year, we've adapted our model a little bit, and we are going to be having some mini camps. Again, I'm looking for a funder for it, so if there's anyone out there who wants to support, mini camps for the youth that have been displaced. So two like mini sessions, 2-day camps, all day camps for kids that might benefit from that. So I don't off the top of my head have the dates, but it's whenever our regular camp is not running, we'll have these mini camps. I think we planned for 3 or 4 2-day mini camps for kids. But again, I'm still looking for a funder for it. That's our big one for the summer. We also have things happening in the Prairie Mountain region. Something similar, again, similar mini 2 or 3 day mini art camps that are happening there as well. Again, I'm not sure what you're doing.
One of our main programming events that we do throughout the summertime is one of our initiatives is to engage the community around Central Park. It's a space that has a lot of newcomers, a lot of families, and every Saturday we do a program called Art in the Park. So it's a free art program for folks to come from 12 to 2. And we have everything set up with the canvas, with the paints. We have a facilitator, and we deliver an art workshop for folks. We have a lot of families that come out for it. A lot of folks look forward to this. It's a very fun event. And we partnered with Uzoma and their office. And then also Leah Gazan is a big supporter. So it's a community-based event, but a lot of folks see the importance of art, and they want to connect with that and help support. So every second Saturday, July 6th, I believe July 19th, and then we have 2 in August, which I can't remember off the top of my head, but that's coming up. I'm very excited.
Just to kind of wrap things up here, one of the things that has come up several times is the challenges of funding, finances for running these initiatives and programs. And then another aspect is about that collaboration between different organizations and things. So when we're looking at funding and those challenges, what are some potential things you would like to see to address? Because it becomes a barrier, right? If programs aren't funded, then people can't go to them, or they have to pay for them, and they might not have the resources for that.
We really believe, or I'll say, I personally believe that reinventing things is not the way to go. We're always very appreciative of the funding that we get from our governments. We appreciate the individual donors and our corporate donors because it's meaningful to them. They see the value in it, but not everyone does. This is why I think it's really important to recognize that those who do contribute, that they continue to be included in the conversation. I don't believe in reinventing wheels. I think if somebody else does something better, and I think it's good for our clients, I'm going to go to them and say, you know what, let's work on this together. You guys do this better. We can do this part. Let's work on it. And that's exactly what happened with our partnership, is that there was no need for us to reinvent wheels. It just made sense to work together.
When we were working together, it made sense in how we were able to utilize each other's skill sets and work within our capacity to deliver this beautiful fundraiser. But to know that we have community organizations who are willing to stand together and support each other is priceless.
It is priceless. And if you can just, as an organization, I understand the need to ensure that we all have funding that we need to exist. But sometimes being territorial gets in the way of that need to be establishing. I get it. I've been in this business, in the sector, not for profit, for over 30 years. So I get all of that. And I think that, what you said, that this model that you can build of collaboration and accessing each other's skill sets and knowing that there's community out there that supports that type of model, I think that's the best gift we can give to our communities.
Thank you for taking a mental health break with the Mood Disorders Association of Manitoba and U Radio. I'm Ryan Funk, and take care.